Video is not misleading or exaggerative in any manner, unfortunately. This is a topic that I have seen very, very little response to, very little attention paid. I've seen more about Britney Griner and Kanye West in the past couple months than I have about the systematic poisoning of your waterways. So I thought I'd do my best to poke whatever little dent I can into this topic. And a lot of people know me and my company as someone that goes around a lot picking up trash. I belong to a local charity organization called the Back River Restoration Committee, and we literally go around and pick up trash. And this is almost more symbolic than anything because, to be quite honest, I understand that most of what we do is just a small scratch in the surface, but I'd rather make a small scratch than nothing at all. So, without further ado, let's talk about how your water is being treated or not treated by the powers that be. Now, this wouldn't be a issue for me if it didn't involve money, right? So any, as we know, any city that is or any state government or city government, any government that is handling money is expected to be good stewards of that money. And now, of course, when the social contract is made, we all buy into the fact that we want the same things, and therefore we give money to a government that'll provide us those things. Clean water is probably one of the most essential, if not the absolute most essential thing to all of our well-being. And obviously, being where we live, most of our I'd say most of our state's water supply is coming from one area, the Chesapeake Bay, the largest bay estuary in North America. I think it would be pretty important to track the health of that, right? So, what got me into this really was a couple of years ago. We live off of Back River here in Essex, Maryland, and the committee that I belong to started noticing and posting screenshots and videos of what appeared to be, lack of a better term, poop floating on the waterways of the Back River. It was widely known at the time that the Back River treatment plant, which is what you smell when you go through Essex and Dundalk, mainly Dundalk, that's what gives Dundalk its favorite scent there. It's widely known that they process raw sewage, right? So there's going to be a smell, but when you see things like what appears to be poop or some sort of sewage-like substances floating in the nearby waterways, we had a pretty quick idea of where that was coming from. So they posted a lot of pictures, and of course, there weren't many explanations given. It seemed to be something that nobody really had much interest in getting answers for until basically enough noise was made that the county executive at the time, Stuart Pittman, actually somewhat got involved. Um, and there was a lawsuit filed on behalf of a local resident whose son had an ear infection and basically was very sick for a long while. She had just moved in the area and didn't realize that uh, the water was so polluted that he could actually get sick from it. So she partnered with Blue Water Baltimore, which is a nonprofit organization that works to better the waterways of our great state. And they are actually in the throes of a lawsuit at the moment over this whole topic. And they probably shouldn't be the only ones. I've heard of many people getting sick over the years through the waterways. I've even heard of people dying, and I don't know how you quite hold people accountable. But I think when you find out what I'm about to say in regards to how the city of Baltimore has handled the treatment of the waterways and the way they've used the money that we've given for them to treat the waterways, you might be more inclined to maybe hold them somewhat more responsible than what you did in the past, which is no surprise, right? I mean, a government organization, especially a liberal, strong-held liberal holdout, which I'm not very political, but it seems that these liberal holdout cities tend to be run very poorly. And I can't say much. I can't say the rest of the government fares much better, but this is the current pattern I see, and Baltimore seems to be right up there with them. At the time where these floating, unidentified particles were discovered on Back River, they were collected by the organization and sent in to actually be sampled and processed. And this is the result. So, just to just to put this into perspective here for you, The enterococcus results here, which is what this is measuring. Essentially, it's a measurement of the bacteria levels in the waterway. The enterococcus results here. It's said that a result of 100 milliliters or 104 milliliters. It said the result of 104 milliliters or more in MPN in the waterway being tested is unsafe to be in contact with. So literally unsafe to touch, let alone swim, right? Unsafe to touch, let alone eat out of. So you can see here that the different portions of the river that were tested here were many, many times above the 104 levels, right? So this is all along Back River here, starting from the top near the Eastern Avenue Bridge and going down. You see near the Eastern Avenue Bridge, which is closest to the facility, it has the highest levels. And as you continue to go downriver, they start to wane a little bit until you get to the end of the river where there actually is the second highest levels, showing that the water does travel and the water is not the water's carrying this stuff and it's going to carry it all around the bay. And so really at places where the current is weakest, you're going to see the highest concentrations of these bacteria. So we're talking about levels many, many, many times. Literally, I guess if I wanted to try and do some quick bad math, 200 times, 200 something times the actual safe to contact levels that we should be expecting our waterways to be. So let's go back to the idea of the amount of money that we've given, right? So we've given about $607 million to the Baltimore Department of Public Works last year. 607 million. That's how much they were allocated in the budget. In addition to that, they had a project that they actually were working on and already had received funding for that ended in 2020. That cost another $430 million. And this project was called the Headworks Project, and it was meant to basically take care of all the issues that the Back River water treatment plant was having, right? The wastewater treatment plant was having. And these were issues such as clogs in the system, pipes not running at maximum efficiency, all kinds of leaks and whatnot. These were things that were known about, and the idea here was basically put this $430 million into completely restoring and taking care of this facility, and we shouldn't have any more issues. $430 million. I wouldn't expect too many issues after that either. But the pictures that you saw in the beginning of the video were actually taken earlier this year. The construction was completed in 2020, at the end of 2020, and those pictures right off the bay were taken right around April and March of 2022. So clearly there's an issue here, right? And I want to explain how these facilities work. So let's go back. Let's go back here a little bit and talk about how you get pictures like that, how these leaks are happening, and what's the source. So you can see that as the flow from the city is traveling through the channels, there are different sluices involved here that are supposed to basically collect and shake out different debris, right? So like your tires, your paper towels, your all kinds of chunky stuff that the trash that cannot actually be broken down chemically. That's supposed to be collected and sent off to a dump. And there are numerous spots here along this flow that try to help do that. And in between that, there are also aeration spots where they are allowing the water to be basically spun and reoxygenated so that the bacteria introduced into the water can help break down the pollutants, the chemical pollutants. So a lot of skimming, a lot of straining, a lot of trying to get oils out, trying to get big chunks of trash out. And along this entire flow chart, you're supposed to be cleaner and cleaner. That's what the smaller and smaller particles represent here. And as you continue, you'll go ahead and reach the end stage, which is Right about here. Those are those big egg things that everyone notices when they pass through Dundalk. They're pretty famous at this point. I think they're hideous, but they do serve a purpose. They're at the actual final stage before the water gets introduced back into the river. Here we have this little pond here representing Back River. So where we're seeing these problems, these pictures, is right here at the end stage, right after number 9. And that's where they're actually introducing the what's supposed to be treated water back in. So that is where the pictures were taken, but that is not the only issue. The Baltimore Sun, like I said, did a report, and it was a very detailed report. They laid out all the issues that led up to the Maryland Environmental Service taking over the Back River wastewater treatment plant earlier this year. And within their report, they looked at two things. They looked at the personnel and they looked at the equipment, and both were apparently absolutely awful. So this $430 million influx of cash and new facilities basically did just about nothing, and the problem actually seemed to get a bit worse. And basically, the Maryland Environmental Service said that the uh, the parts of the facility were understaffed by about 25 to 50%. There was even reports of workers verbally and physically fighting each other, people using company time to wash their cars and sleep in the parking lots. There was all kinds of people who were basically still on payroll but not really showing up, uh, on payroll by name only. And in effect, there was not really any way that anybody was holding them accountable. Nobody was being fired, and it seemed to be one of those classic government jobs where everyone kind of keeps their job regardless of what they do. There's no really way to hold anybody accountable for the kind of work they do. So, as you can imagine, Baltimore is no different in that way. They actually had apprentices training other apprentices, so there's people that didn't fully know their job training other people that don't yet fully know their job. And so you have a collection of all these people who are completely unmotivated, soaking up government time, sucking up government money, and don't really know what they're doing. Like I said, it got so bad there was actual different departments within the facility, physically and verbally fighting each other. So this is where the Maryland Environmental Service stepped in, and once they actually arrived, they also saw that the facility itself was in total disrepair. There was valves, pumps, blowers, mixers, all kinds of functional equipment that was just plugged with trash. Apparently, there was actual animals living in some of these parts of the facility. So, you've got tanks of water trying to be cleansed, and then you've got animals coming to live inside of them. And then you've also got actual overflows, and this is the big part of it, which is most every section here, one, two, three, four, five, every section here is dependent on what's coming in before it. So if there's any sort of blockage, which if it's not treated correctly and cleaned, if there's any sort of blockage, these blockages will cause overflows that will get in or around the rest of the system. So this overflow then is either draining directly down into the river, or it's draining into the another part of the actual process, right? So imagine that three or five drains down into 9, or drains directly down into Back River. And these are obviously portions of the water that hasn't been yet fully treated. So these blockages are causing water to overflow, all kinds of sludge leaking into the river and other parts of the system. And part of this is just straight up negligence. Nobody was checking in on the actual facility. It was the Baltimore's baby, and they trusted the managers that were there that were assigned to that location, that they knew what they were doing and were keeping things up and running. And basically, as long as there weren't any major shutdowns of the system, they were left to their own devices until these reports of actual waste started coming out that was in the body of water, the Back River. Nobody really seemed to care. So once Maryland Department of Environment did step in, they kind of released a update to what they were doing and how they were trying to get this plant back up and running properly. They have done quite a lot. You can see they've replaced some recirculation pumps. Pretty much all the equipment that had failed, they replaced. Um, the I mean, there's just so much. The scum booms, scum logs number 2 and 4, uh, activator number 4 system, primary settling tank number 9. All of these things were broken, leaking, completely not working, pumps not working. It was just a mess. And so all of these things were causing blockages, causing sludge to settle on the bottom of these pipes that are supposed to be moving the water, right? And when the sludge settles, it blocks the flow of the clean water. So this was, and they also can't get the sludge out of the system, right? So the sludge settles because the flow is too small. Well, now you can't get the sludge itself out of the system. So they have done a decent job at trying to clean, and they're actually trying to hold Baltimore City accountable for the fact that they have to do this work. Good luck with that. And Blue Water Baltimore actually runs a pretty consistent way to measure and assess the different water systems that are in Baltimore and around Baltimore, basically all coming from or draining to the Chesapeake Bay. So for those that don't realize, your drinking water comes from the Chesapeake Bay, either directly or indirectly, either through the Liberty Reservoir, through Pretty Boy Reservoir, or the different reservoirs that are around the state, which all are usually coming from the Chesapeake Bay tributary system in some way or another. So you're actually drinking some of this water, and of course they're putting chlorine and whatnot. But what you don't realize is when these types of issues are happening, they have to actually put in more chlorine and into the water supply. And chlorine isn't the most safe thing for you at higher levels, and we don't quite know. Um, we don't quite know what some of those effects might end up being because of the fact that they have to up the chlorinated process. But on their website, you can see that they actually have the latest posted results. Now, don't let some of this green fool you, because there's a lot of different things that come into account here. The first measurement here is bacteria. This time of year, bacteria is not super common, obviously, because it's colder. Smaller days, less sunlight, and it's colder, right? But bacteria isn't so much the main concern as it is the effect on both population of fish and game, and of course, then the population and health of the bay as a whole, right? The bacteria portion, like I said, we chlorinate our water for the most part. Even though last year in West Baltimore there was a boil warning. Actually, last year, I mean, that was September of this year. There was a boil warning for all of West Baltimore, and the mayor tried to say that that had nothing to do with the wastewater treatment plant failures. There is a wastewater treatment plant here in Patapsco, and they are now considering taking that over. So all the issues that I just stated with the Back River plant, they're also having with Patapsco. And the fact that this is happening in two next door tributaries from one another, just massive amounts of waste being drained into your your drinking water and your recreational water and where you live. There's no way that this can't have some sort of negative effect besides just fish kills and crab kills and lower populations of the sea animals. So I got a lot of friends in the Glen Burnie, Pasadena area. So I'm going to choose a portion of water in those areas, and we're going to look and see what the latest results were. It appears most of the bacteria results are fine, right? But this is Northwest Harbor and Patapsco River. I know a lot of people that do a lot of rock fishing in Patapsco River. Look at the chlorophyll level. They failed, right? So the safe chlorophyll level here on this is anything below 6.2. This is 23.98. Passes pH. Fails this test, 0.8. And fails the phosphorus test. And it's not just that they're failing the phosphorus test. Look at the range of the sample, right? 0.305. So this result is on the upper part of what they're even measuring, like what they're even considering the results could be. The actual range of being safe is supposed to be below 0.04. They're at zero point 0.2. So 5 times. The phosphorus levels are 5 times the safe amount. Nitrogen, another major issue in these waterways. And we'll talk a little more about that. So the nitrogen phosphorus issue is one that is directly leading to these breakouts of the algae that you're seeing. And every year when you hear about this algae bloom that kills all kinds of fish and animals, which most people tend to ignore because I guess it's just so common these days. But when you hear about these algae, this is Orchard Beach. I'll go down on into Pasadena here and show you how that looks. Riviera Beach. You know, a lot of people that live around there. And this algae will basically bloom out of control. It'll suck all the oxygen out of the water and it'll just kill. And then some of this algae, like the red algae and the blue algae, actually emits toxins and also kills that way and can kill humans as well, and it has. So again, the bacteria right now is always going to pass, but I guarantee this will be a different result when it comes into May and June. The chlorophyll level, again, Rock Creek, right out of Tapsco River, Stony Creek. The chlorophyll level is, again, roughly 3 to 4 times the safe level. The, let's see, second depth seems to fail every time. The Secchi depth is, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but it's basically a measure of the turbidity, the clarity of the water. So obviously, the clearer the water, the better. Allows fish to be able to see their prey, and is appealing more just in general to the eye. But there's also health aspects there with grasses and underwater vegetation trying to get sunlight, which obviously helps take out contaminants, pollutants, and add oxygen. So you might ask at this point, what can I do here about this situation? There's a few things. One, as usual, the answer in America is to hold your elected officials accountable. So that is making this a ballot issue. And it should be. I mean, obviously, water is, it goes without saying, an extremely important resource to us as humans, and to our civilization as a whole, and to our future generations, which is what really got me involved, is the thought that my kids are going to be raised up and around an environment like that. Back with the Restoration Committee, obviously, I'm preferable to them. We are the organization that goes around picking up trash and operating booms to collect trash. But again, the physical trash has nothing to do with the wastewater treatment plant's spillage. Another good organization is the organization that I was getting the data off of for the water quality. That is Blue Water Baltimore. They are the organization that's actually helping the lady in the beginning that I mentioned whose son contracted that ear infection. They're helping her with the lawsuit, which is amazing, right? The fact that they have to sue the city when they made her son sick. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They made her son sick, and now they're in a legal fight to get what's right. And so just the Baltimore City as a whole is just a shame. I love the city, uh, and I really wish we could do something about it politically. It seems to have a stronghold of elected leaders who continuously make empty promises and don't deliver. And this is just another example. And unfortunately for them, this example stepped into something that I care very much about. So I wanted to bring to you. Hope everybody has a lovely week, and hopefully you remember this video and you do a little more research on your own.